Hey there, hope you're doing good. Today we'll talk about HTTP verbs or methods as they're called. So in HTTP, you have a URL that specifies a resource and you have different verbs, in the noun verb pattern. And programming languages are also like that. You have classes or objects, which are the nouns, the things that you operate on, and the verbs, which are the actions you can do to an object. For example, if you have a bank account class in, let's say, Java, you can close the account, you can do a transfer, you can check the balance, a bunch of verbs that you can apply to this noun. The same concept applies in REST, except that REST defines standard verbs that you are supposed to use whenever possible. These are get, post, put, patch, and delete. Let's look at each of them. Get is used to fetch resources. It is supposed to be read only. It should not make any change visible to the user. So don't use get to send an email. Because get links can be prefetched. In that case, the email would be sent before the user clicks the send button. Next, we have put, which updates a modified resource. So you've downloaded something from a server, you've modified it, now you want to upload it back to the server. Say a profile on a social network. You've downloaded the JSON, you've edited some fields, then puts it back to the server. Then you have patch, which is similar to put, but with patch, you only specify the diffs, only the parameters that changed in the JSON. Let's take a real world example to see why this matters. Let's say I have a social network and I have a profile on it with three parameters: name, location, and profession. And this is how they are set. Name is Karthik Vadadi, location is Bangalore, profession is CTO. And I'm using my laptop. I notice that the location has a typo. So I edit Bangalore with so many A's to the proper Bangalore. But before I press save, the laptop runs low on power and hibernates. So I switch to my desktop. I notice that I'm no longer a CTO, I now work as a consultant. So I again go to the profile. Again it shows this way because the save didn't happen, right? The laptop went to sleep before that. So it shows this. I click edit, I change CTO to consultant and I press save. Now after some time, I switch back to my laptop which has charged. I open it, I still see this with CTO because the page was loaded earlier, right? And then I press save on the laptop. What happens? If you use post, the edit that happened on the desktop is overwritten by the edit that happens on the laptop. So it still shows I'm a CTO, not a consultant. Whereas I expect the system to accept both the changes, the edit made on the laptop and the edit made on the desktop. Why does it not work? Let's see why at the JSON level. If you use, sorry, this is supposed to be put. If you use put, it doesn't work. Let's see why. This was my JSON to start with. The location has a typo, the profession is the old one, the CTO. On the laptop, I edited Bangalore to spell it properly. And I'm about to press save and the laptop went to sleep. On the desktop, I open the page and I edit CTO to consultant. Bangalore still shows misspelled because it wasn't fixed yet. So then when I press save on the desktop, it makes a HTTP put with these parameters. So whatever was there earlier gets replaced with these parameters. Later on, when I switch to my laptop and I make a save, it makes a HTTP put again. And notice that the profession has gone back to CTO because this was an earlier loaded version. So the change to consultant gets overwritten with put. And it works with, sorry, there's typos here, it works with patch. Let's see how the scenario would play out if I'm using patch. On the laptop, I edit the location to Bangalore, and before I press save, the laptop goes to sleep. Then on the desktop, I change the profession to consultant and I press save. The key difference is, instead of sending all the parameters like here, with patch you send only the changed parameter, profession to consultant. So the server goes to the JSON and changes only this field on the server side, instead of overwriting the whole thing blindly. So it becomes consultant. Later on, my laptop is charged and I turn it on and I unlock it and I press save. Since I've changed the location, only the location field is sent to the server. And the server is told to update the location field to Bangalore, which is properly spelled. You'll notice that there is no conflict here. It works as expected. Both the profession and the location are changed because only the changes are sent to the server. This is an example of where using patch benefits you. There's also delete, which deletes a resource. Say if you're using Notion and you delete a page. Notion, if you're using the iPad app in this example, it makes a HTTP delete call to the Notion server saying delete this page. And then you have post, which is a wild card. It can perform any action at all, and you should use it only when nothing else fits. If you're doing a read-only operation, you should consider using get. Some of these methods have a request body and some don't. Put has a request body, get doesn't. Some of these are idempotent. Idempotency means performing the same operation twice has the same result as performing it once. To give you a real life example, which has nothing to do with APIs or HTTP, adding someone to a WhatsApp group is idempotent. If you add them twice, they're not going to be a member of the group twice. They're still going to be a member only once, as if you had added them once. So it doesn't make any difference. Deleting a file is another idempotent operation. If you delete it twice, you end up with the same result, which is that the file is not available anymore. An example of a non-idempotent operation is sending an email. If you do it twice, you have sent 2 emails. The advantage of idempotent operations is that they can be retried if an error occurs without prompting the user. Put and delete are idempotent. Going back to the example of using the Notion iOS app to delete a page, and it makes a delete call to the server, let's say the network connection fails. Or on the other hand, there's a server error like a 503. In either case, the iOS app can automatically retry the request. It need not ask the user anything. On the other hand, if a HTTP verb is not idempotent, the software should not automatically retry it. It should ask the user to retry. And of course, the error message should be helpful. It shouldn't be retry this request, because that's like a dumb message. Why can't the system do it? No. So I'll give you an example. Transferring money online. If the network call fails, you don't know whether it was accepted or not. You can't automatically retry the request, because then the money could be transferred twice to the recipient. Instead, you should put up an error message. Again, not a dumb error message saying, please retry this request, but go to the list of transactions, check if this transaction has already been made. If not, please do it again. So this is the notion of idempotency. Read-only methods like get are anyway idempotent. If you're fetching a logo from a server, let's say, or any kind of file, you can do it multiple times. So there are 3 types of verbs. Those that are read-only, which are the safest. You can prefetch them, you can cache them, and you can retry them. Then there are idempotent requests, which you cannot prefetch because, as we discussed earlier, prefetching a put that sends an email prematurely before the user has finished typing it. They can't be prefetched, but they can be retried. On the other hand, you have things like post, which can't be prefetched or retried. So these are the three levels of semantics. Interestingly, you can use custom verbs. You're not restricted to these verbs. Most people don't know this. An example comes from varnish, the reverse proxy. It uses a HTTP purge method to purge something from the cache. As another example, there used to be a protocol called webdev, which was built on top of HTTP. It had its own methods called prop find, lock, unlock, etc. And tools like Postman and curl also support custom verbs. So if it helps you express the semantics better, don't hesitate to use custom verbs. Just keep in mind that using standard verbs has an advantage that people understand the expected semantics. They know, is it retriable, is it prefetchable, and so on. Whether it has a request body. So use standard methods as much as possible. If you can model it that way, it's better. But on the rare occasion you can't, you can use custom methods. If you'd like me to upskill your engineering team, my consulting link is in the description.